The morning sky over New York City split open like a wound. Sarah Chun pressed her face against the coffee shop window, watching in stunned silence as massive shadows blotted out the sun. The alien ships hung in the air like metallic thunderclouds, their hulls gleaming with an otherworldly shimmer that made her eyes water. Around her, customers fumbled for their phones, some crying, others laughing in hysteria. "Jesus Christ," whispered the barista behind her. "They're real." The ships were unlike anything from human imagination. Each vessel stretched for miles, their surfaces covered in geometric patterns that seemed to shift and pulse with their own light. Smaller craft detached from the motherships like seeds from a dying flower, descending toward the city with purpose that chilled Sarah to her bone. Her phone buzzed. A government emergency alert. "Seek immediate shelter. This is not a drill." But there was nowhere to run. The first attack came without warning. A beam of violet energy lanced down from the nearest ship, carving through the Chrysler building like it was made of paper. The top floors simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered to the wind. Then another beam and another, methodically dismantling humanity's greatest achievements with surgical precision. Sarah's military training kicked in as the coffee shop erupted in panic. She grabbed an elderly man who'd fallen, helping him toward the back exit. "Move! Everyone out the back!" The aliens weren't trying to kill everyone at once, she realized. They were making a statement. Each beam targeted landmarks, government buildings, military installations. The Statue of Liberty vanished in a flash of purple light. The Pentagon's roof collapsed inward as if crushed by an invisible hand. Outside, the streets filled with fleeing people and the acrid smell of vaporized concrete. Sarah looked up to see smaller alien craft hovering overhead, scanning the crowds below with pulsing red lights. Occasionally, one would descend and emit a low humming sound. When it rose again, a dozen people would be gone, leaving only empty clothes and the echo of screams. Her phone rang. Marcus, her brother in Colorado Springs. "Sarah!" "Thank God. Are you seeing this?" They hit NORAD 15 minutes ago. The entire mountain just done. I'm in Manhattan. It's chaos here. Are you safe? For now. But Sarah, something weird is happening. The aliens aren't just attacking randomly. They're taking specific people. Scientists, engineers, military personnel. Anyone with technical expertise. Through the phone, she heard the distinctive whine of alien technology powering up. "Marcus? Marcus!" The line went dead. Sarah ran through the streets, her mind racing. She'd spent 8 years in Army intelligence before joining the private sector. This wasn't random destruction. It was systematic dismantling of human civilization, starting with their ability to fight back or understand what was happening to them. She ducked into a subway entrance as another wave of alien craft swept overhead. The tunnels were packed with refugees, their faces lit by the glow of emergency lighting and smartphone screens. Everyone was trying to call loved ones, but the networks were overloaded. An older man in an expensive suit sat on the platform steps, staring at nothing. 40 years building my company, he muttered. 40 years, and they erased it in 10 seconds. A young mother clutched her crying baby, rocking back and forth. "What do they want? What do they want from us?" Sarah pulled out her laptop and connected to her phone's hotspot. If the internet was still functioning, she needed to gather intelligence. The official news channels were either down or broadcasting the same footage on loop, but social media painted a clearer picture. The attacks were global and coordinated. London, Tokyo, Moscow, Delhi, Sydney, every major city was under assault. But the pattern was becoming clear. The aliens were systematically targeting 3 things: military capabilities, technological infrastructure, and educated populations. She scrolled through amateur videos and eyewitness accounts. In Silicon Valley, entire tech campuses had been evacuated by alien craft. MIT's campus was a smoking crater. CERN had simply vanished, leaving behind a perfectly circular hole in the earth, but there were also stories of resistance. A group of Marines in Quantico had managed to down a small alien scout ship with concentrated rocket fire before being vaporized in retaliation. Fighter jets around the world were engaging the invaders. Though with little success, Sarah's intelligence background helped her piece together what others were missing. The aliens weren't here to colonize Earth. They weren't even trying to kill all humans efficiently. They were doing something far more sinister. They were harvesting humanity's knowledge and expertise while systematically destroying their ability to rebuild. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Former military intelligence personnel report to Grand Central Station Emergency Coordination Center. Authorization, Hotel 77 Alpha. She recognized the code. Black Ops protocol from her old unit. Fighting through the crowds, Sarah made her way to Grand Central. What she found there changed everything. In a commandeered conference room beneath the main terminal, a hastily assembled group of military and intelligence personnel were coordinating humanity's response. Colonel James Harrison, her former commanding officer, looked up as she entered. His face was grim, aged by the events of the last few hours. "Jun, glad you made it. We need every experienced hand we can get." "Sir, what's the situation?" Harrison gestured to a bank of laptops and communication equipment. "The aliens hit us hard and fast, but they made one mistake. They underestimated human redundancy and paranoia. We've got backup communications, hardened facilities they don't know about, and a lot of very angry people with specialized training." He pulled up a tactical display showing alien positions worldwide. "Intelligence suggests they're not trying to exterminate us. They're trying to capture our technological base intact while eliminating our ability to resist. They want Earth's resources and human knowledge, but they need us alive to extract it." Sarah studied the data. "So they're treating us like a resource to be harvested." "Exactly. Which means they have weaknesses. They're being careful not to damage the planet's ecosystem. Their technology, while advanced, isn't magic. And most importantly," Harrison's eyes hardened, "they have no idea what humans are capable of when we're backed into a corner." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed the implications. "What are our options?" someone asked. Harrison smiled grimly. "We're going to show these bastards why Earth has been fighting wars for 10,000 years. We're going to teach them that humans don't go quietly into extinction." Outside, alien ships continued their methodical destruction of human civilization. But in the tunnels and bunkers beneath their feet, humanity was preparing to fight back with a ferocity that would soon shake the invaders to their core. 3 days after the invasion began, Dr. Elena Vasquez crawled through the ruins of what used to be Johns Hopkins University. Her white lab coat was torn and stained with dust and blood, but her eyes burned with determination. In her backpack, she carried something the aliens hadn't counted on: human ingenuity. Born from desperation, the alien harvesting ships had taken most of the research faculty, but they'd missed Elena. She'd been in the sub-basement working on classified Defense Department projects when the attacks started. Now she was humanity's best hope for understanding their enemy's technology. Above ground, Baltimore burned. Alien patrol craft swept the streets with scanning beams, searching for survivors with scientific or technical knowledge. But Elena had learned their patterns. The aliens were methodical, almost mechanical in their approach. They followed strict protocols that made them predictable. Her radio crackled with Harrison's voice from the New York resistance cell. "Phoenix, this is command. What's your status?" Elena keyed her mic. "I've got it, command. The alien power signature analysis is complete." She'd spent 72 sleepless hours analyzing readings from a damaged alien scout craft that had crashed in the harbor. What she'd discovered changed everything they thought they knew about their invaders. "Their technology isn't as advanced as we assumed," she continued, her voice carrying exhausted excitement. "It's different, not necessarily superior. They're using quantum entanglement for power distribution, but the system has a fatal weakness. The entangled particles need to maintain coherence across vast distances, which requires enormous amounts of energy." Through her laboratory window, she could see one of the massive motherships hovering over the inner harbor. It looked invincible, but Elena now knew better. If we can disrupt their quantum field at the source, the entire network should collapse like a house of cards. All their ships, all their weapons, everything depends on this one system. Harrison's voice came back immediately. What do you need? Time and access to a high-energy particle accelerator. The aliens destroyed most of them, but I know of one facility they missed. It's deep underground in Colorado, built to survive nuclear war. Cheyenne Mountain? No, deeper. Black Site designation Mountain Home. It's a backup research facility that officially doesn't exist. Elena gathered her research and prepared to move. Outside, alien hunting parties were getting closer. Through the destroyed window, she could see their distinctive blue uniforms and insectoid movements as they methodically searched each building. The aliens themselves were a disturbing sight. Roughly humanoid but wrong in every detail, they moved with unnatural precision. Their faces were hidden behind reflective masks and their limbs bent at angles that made Elena's spine crawl. But after days of observation, she'd noticed something important. They never deviated from their programming. They were efficient, but they lacked creativity. Her radio sparked to life again. This time it was a different voice, younger and speaking in rapid Spanish before switching to accented English. Dr. Vasquez? This is Carlos Mendez calling from Mexico City Resistance. We have situation here. Elena frowned. International communication had been nearly impossible since the invasion. How are you reaching me? Ham radio network? Bouncing signals off atmospheric interference from alien ships? Listen, the aliens here are doing something different. They're not just taking scientists. They're forcing captured humans to work on some kind of construction project. Elena's blood chilled. What kind of construction? Massive industrial complex. Looks like they're building processing facilities. For humans. The implications hit her like a physical blow. The aliens weren't just harvesting Earth's knowledge, they were preparing to harvest Earth's population on an industrial scale. Carlos, listen to me carefully. How many humans are they using for this construction? Thousands. Maybe tens of thousands? They work in shifts, guarded by alien soldiers. But here's the strange part. The humans are fighting back in small ways. Sabotage, slowdowns, equipment failures. The aliens keep having to replace human workers because they stop functioning. Elena understood. The humans were dying rather than complete whatever horror the aliens were building. But that kind of resistance wouldn't last forever. She needed to reach Mountain Home before it was too late, making her way through the ruined city. Elena used her knowledge of alien patrol patterns to avoid detection. The invaders had established a predictable schedule, sweeping each sector every 4 hours. It gave her narrow windows of opportunity to move, but as she reached the outskirts of Baltimore, she encountered something that stopped her cold. A group of human survivors had barricaded themselves in an old shopping mall. But these weren't random civilians, they were armed military veterans, and they were fighting back. Elena watched from behind an overturned car as a squad of alien soldiers approached the mall entrance. The aliens moved in their typical formation, confident in their technological superiority. They walked directly into a trap. The humans had spent days studying alien behavior, just like Elena had. They'd learned that the invaders relied too heavily on their technology and had grown complacent. When the aliens stepped into the mall's main corridor, hidden humans detonated improvised explosives that brought down half the ceiling. The aliens' energy shields flickered and failed under the weight of tons of concrete and steel. Their advanced weapons were useless against the simple physics of falling debris, but it was what happened next that truly amazed Elena, the surviving. Humans didn't just loot the alien equipment, they began systematically studying it. A former Army engineer was already disassembling an alien weapon, while a retired electronics teacher documented its internal structure with a smartphone camera. Elena realized she was witnessing humanity's greatest strength in action. Humans didn't just fight, they learned from every encounter, adapted, and shared that knowledge with others. Her radio came alive with voices from around the world. Ham radio operators in Australia reporting successful ambush of alien ground troops. Resistance fighters in London sharing intelligence about alien weak points. Scientists in hiding comparing notes about alien technology. The aliens had made a critical error. They'd assumed that destroying humanity's formal command structure would cripple human resistance. But humans had been sharing knowledge and organizing themselves for centuries without waiting for official permission. Elena keyed her microphone and began broadcasting on the international frequency. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of Johns Hopkins. I'm transmitting technical analysis of alien power systems to all stations. The data suggests a way to bring down their entire network. She began reading her findings, knowing that around the world, scientists and engineers in hiding would be taking notes, building on her work, and preparing for humanity's counterattack. By the time she finished her broadcast, Elena realized that the aliens had made their greatest mistake. They'd given humanity something it had never had before. A truly united purpose. Every human on Earth now had the same enemy. Every human on Earth was now part of the same resistance movement. And every human on Earth was about to discover just how dangerous their species could be when pushed to the edge of extinction. Elena shouldered her pack and began the long journey to Colorado. Behind her, the sounds of human resistance grew louder as more survivors emerged from hiding to join the fight. The aliens had wanted to harvest human knowledge. Instead, they were about to learn why humans had clawed their way to the top of Earth's food chain and stayed there for thousands of years. Commander Yrikstal stood aboard the primary harvesting vessel, studying the displays that monitored the human population below. The operation should have been routine. Initial bombardment, infrastructure destruction, population harvesting for knowledge extraction, then systematic resource collection. The hegemony had performed this sequence on 47 worlds over the past 3 centuries, but something was wrong with this primitive species. Status report, Yrikstal commanded. His mandibles clicking with irritation, Sub-Commander Nexvo's voice carried an unusual tone of uncertainty. Harvesting efficiency has decreased by 37% since day 1. Human resistance is ... evolving. Yrikstal's 4 eyes focused on the tactical display. Red indicators showed areas of unexpected human activity. Instead of the predictable panic and collapse they'd observed on other worlds, the humans were organizing. Elaborate. They are sharing information at an unprecedented rate. Our monitoring stations detect communication networks we did not anticipate. They are using primitive electromagnetic radiation to coordinate across vast distances. The display showed a web of amateur radio signals bouncing around the planet. Yrikstal had dismissed these as irrelevant chatter, but now he could see the pattern. The humans were creating a global intelligence network using technology barely more advanced than their industrial age. Furthermore, Nexvo continued, human specimens are exhibiting behavioral anomalies during processing. Instead of providing requested information, many are choosing termination. This is highly irregular. Yrikstal had studied 17 different species during his career. In every case, the primitive inhabitants surrendered their knowledge in exchange for survival. It was simple biological programming, preservation of self over preservation of species, but these humans were different. They were choosing death over cooperation on a massive scale. On the main screen, footage from the Mexico City processing facility showed another example of this disturbing behavior. A human engineer, when threatened with termination unless he revealed weapons manufacturing secrets, had instead attacked his alien interrogator with his bare hands. The human had been neutralized immediately, but not before seriously injuring a valuable technician. "Show me the resistance activities," Yrikstal ordered. The display shifted to surveillance footage from around the globe. What Yrikstal saw defied everything he understood about primitive civilizations. In Tokyo, humans had somehow learned to predict patrol routes and were systematically destroying alien equipment with crude explosive devices. In London, they discovered that alien energy shields could be overloaded by concentrated electromagnetic pulses generated from modified microwave ovens. In Sao Paulo, they were using mirrors and focused sunlight to disable alien scanning equipment, but most disturbing was the footage from New York. A group of humans had captured an intact alien scout ship. Instead of fleeing or hiding, they were taking it apart piece by piece. documenting every component with their primitive recording devices. Worse, they were broadcasting their findings to other human groups using those same electromagnetic networks. "This is unprecedented," Rixtol muttered. "Show me the global communication intercepts." The hegemony's translation systems had been working overtime to decode human languages. What they discovered was a coordinated scientific effort unlike anything they'd encountered. Humans around the planet were sharing technical data, tactical intelligence, and strategic planning in real time. A voice transmission from North America made Rixtol a stomach acid churn. "This is Dr. Vasquez broadcasting on frequency 14.230. The alien power distribution system uses quantum entanglement. If we can generate sufficient interference at these specific frequency ranges, we may be able to cascade failure their entire network. Are they correct in this assessment?" Rixtol demanded. Nexvo's silence lasted too long. "Our technical analysis suggests—" "Yes, Commander. Their primitive understanding has somehow identified our primary vulnerability." Rixtol felt something he hadn't experienced since his first combat deployment 3 centuries ago. Fear. The humans were learning faster than the hegemony's models predicted. They were sharing information more efficiently than species with advanced technology. And they were fighting with a ferocity that defied tactical logic. Another transmission caught his attention. "This is Moscow calling all stations. We have successfully reversed engineer alien weapon power cell. Sending schematics now." Beijing responding to Moscow. "We confirm receipt and are beginning production of human-compatible alien weapons." Sydney to all stations. "We've located alien ammunition depot. Preparing assault with captured weapons." Rixtol watched in growing horror as the humans systematically turned the hegemony's own technology against them. In just 5 days, these primitives had achieved what most species took decades to accomplish. "Commander," Nexvo reported, "we're receiving emergency signals from harvesting stations worldwide. Human resistance groups are conducting coordinated attacks using our own weapons." The tactical display exploded with alarm indicators. In Paris, humans had overrun a processing facility and were freeing captured specimens. In Cairo, they'd destroyed an entire fleet of patrol craft using hijacked alien explosives. In Vancouver, they'd somehow disabled a mothership's shields and brought it down with their primitive aircraft, but what truly terrified Rixtol was the footage from Mountain Home. Colorado, the humans had reached their hidden particle accelerator facility. The electromagnetic signature suggested they were charging the system to maximum power. If Dr. Vasquez's theories were correct, they were preparing to target the quantum entanglement field that powered the entire invasion fleet. How long until they can complete their weapon? Rixtol asked. "Our analysis suggests 12 hours maximum." Rixtol made a decision that went against every hegemony protocol. "Signal the fleet command. We need immediate reinforcements. This operation has been compromised." "Sir? We are the most advanced military force in the galaxy. Surely these primitives cannot—" "Look at the data!" Rixtol's voice echoed through the command center. "In 5 days, they've gone from Stone Age technology to threatening our quantum power grid. They're not just learning our technology, they're improving it." The display showed human modifications to captured alien weapons. Somehow, using crude materials and primitive manufacturing, they'd made the weapons more efficient, more deadly. "These humans don't just adapt," Rixtol continued. "They innovate. They take our technology and make it better. And they're doing it while fighting a war for their species' survival." Another alarm sounded. Human resistance groups had discovered the locations of 3 more motherships and were coordinating simultaneous attacks. Rixtol realized with growing dread that the hegemony had made a fundamental error. They'd assumed that technological superiority guaranteed victory. But the humans were proving that intelligence, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to surrender could overcome any technological advantage. "Sir," Nexvo reported quietly, "Fleet Command is requesting explanation for our reinforcement request. They say no primitive species has ever required additional support. Rixdal looked at the displays showing human resistance activities across the globe. Thousands of small groups working together, sharing knowledge, refusing to give up despite facing impossible odds. They were like nothing the hegemony had ever encountered. "Tell Fleet Command that these humans are not a primitive species," he said grimly. "They're something much more dangerous. They're a species that fights." On the screens around him, the evidence mounted. Humans weren't just resisting the invasion, they were learning from it, adapting to it, and preparing to turn the hegemony's own power against them. Rixdal began calculating the odds of mission failure for the first time in his military career. The numbers were not encouraging. In less than 6 hours, the humans would either achieve their goal of destroying the invasion fleet, or the hegemony would be forced to employ tactics they'd never used before, the complete extermination of a planetary population. Either way, the humans had already achieved something no other species ever had. They'd made the mighty hegemony afraid. Dr. Elena Vasquez wiped sweat from her forehead as she made final adjustments to the particle accelerator, deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Around her, a team of scientists, engineers, and military personnel worked with desperate efficiency. They had less than 3 hours before the alien fleet would likely discover their location. "Quantum field generators are online," called out Dr. James Park, a former CERN physicist who joined the resistance after his family was taken in Geneva. "But, Elena, I'm seeing some concerning readings." Elena looked up from her calculations. The Mountain Home facility was impressive even by pre-invasion standards. Built during the Cold War as an ultimate backup for America's scientific capabilities, it contained equipment that rivaled the world's best research centers. But they were pushing everything far beyond safe operating parameters. What kind of concerns? The energy levels we need to disrupt their quantum network. We're talking about generating fields that could tear holes in space-time itself. If we miscalculate, we might not just destroy the alien fleet. We could destroy ourselves, and possibly a good chunk of the North American continent. The control room fell silent. Everyone understood the implications. They were preparing to use experimental physics as a weapon, with no safety protocols and no margin for error. "Colonel," Harrison's voice crackled through the intercom from the command center. "Elena, we're getting reports from around the world. The coordinated attacks are working, but the aliens are adapting faster than we anticipated. They've started using orbital bombardment against any installation that shows high-energy signatures." Elena looked at the massive machines humming around her. The particle accelerator was definitely going to show a high-energy signature. How long do we have? Maybe 2 hours before they pinpoint this location. But Elena, there's something else. We've been monitoring alien communications, and they're calling for reinforcements. If we don't stop this fleet soon, we'll be facing an entire armada. Dr. Park pulled Elena aside. "There might be another way. I've been analyzing the quantum entanglement network, and I think we can do more than just disrupt it. We might be able to reverse the polarity of their entire power grid." "Meaning what?" "Instead of just cutting their power, we could turn every alien ship into a massive electromagnetic bomb. Their own technology would destroy them from the inside out." Elena stared at the equations Park had scrawled on a nearby whiteboard. The mathematics were elegant, terrifying, and completely theoretical. "James, have you tested any of this?" "Testing would require equipment we don't have and time we don't have. But Elena, the math works. At least I think it works." From the communication center, they could hear updates from resistance groups around the world. In Berlin, human fighters using captured alien technology had successfully destroyed 2 patrol ships. In Lagos, engineers have figured out how to turn alien scanning devices into weapons. In Mumbai, a group of software developers had somehow hacked into alien communication networks and were feeding false information to their patrols. But for every success, there were reports of brutal retaliation. The aliens were beginning to target civilian populations indiscriminately. Millions were dying as the invaders grew more desperate and vicious. Elena made her decision. "We do it. James, input your modifications. Everyone else, prepare for emergency evacuation in case this goes wrong." The next hour was a blur of frantic activity. Scientists who'd never worked together before collaborated with the seamless efficiency of a jazz ensemble. A nuclear engineer from Oak Ridge worked alongside a quantum physicist from MIT, while a computer programmer from Silicon Valley interfaced alien technology with human control systems. They were improvising science at the highest possible level, using incomplete data and untested theories to save their species. 30 minutes before the estimated activation time, the facility's sensors detected incoming alien aircraft. "They've found us," Harrison announced. 12 alien attack craft inbound. Ada 15 minutes. Elena looked around the control room. They needed at least 20 minutes to safely complete the charging sequence. "Can we accelerate the process?" Dr. Park shook his head. "Not without risking a catastrophic explosion. The quantum fields need time to stabilize." From the surface, they could hear the sound of human resistance fighters engaging the alien scouts. Machine gun fire echoed through the ventilation shafts, mixed with the distinctive whine of alien energy weapons. Captain Rodriguez, a Marine who'd been coordinating surface defenses, burst into the control room. His uniform was singed and blood ran down his left arm. "They're hitting us with everything they've got. My people are buying you time, but we can't hold them for long." Elena watched the charging sequence crawl toward completion. 85%. 87%. The lights flickered as explosions rocked the facility above. Dust rained from the ceiling. "Elena!" Dr. Park's voice was urgent. "I'm seeing fluctuations in the quantum field matrix. If those explosions damage our containment systems, how much more time do we need?" 5 minutes for safe activation. 3 minutes for probable activation. Anything less than that, and we're just guessing. More explosions shook the facility. Emergency lighting kicked in as the main power grid fluctuated. Harrison's voice came through the intercom. "Elena, whatever you're going to do it now. They're breaking through our perimeter." Elena looked at the readout. 92%. The quantum field was stabilizing, but slowly she thought about her brother Marcus, somewhere in Colorado Springs, about the millions of humans being processed in alien facilities, about the children who would never grow up to become scientists or engineers or dreamers if humanity lost this war. "Initiate sequence now," she ordered. Dr. Park's hands flew over the controls. Field matrix at 93%. Beginning quantum cascade. The particle accelerator's hum rose to a deafening roar. Energy readings spiked beyond anything the instruments were designed to measure. Outside, the alien ships suddenly stopped their attack. Elena could almost feel their sensors detecting the massive quantum disturbance building beneath the mountain. "They know what we're doing," she whispered. The alien aircraft above began charging their most powerful weapons, preparing to vaporize the entire facility. "Quantum resonance achieved," Park announced. "Targeting alien fleet power grid. Initiating polarity reversal in 3.1. Elena pressed the activation button. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every piece of electronic equipment in the facility went dead. Emergency lighting failed. The air circulation stopped. In the absolute darkness, Elena could hear only the sound of her own heartbeat. Then, far above them, the sky began to burn. Alien ships across the globe started exploding, simultaneously as their own power systems turned against them. The quantum entanglement network that had made them invincible became a chain reaction of destruction that spread faster than light itself. In the darkness beneath the mountain, Elena Vasquez smiled. Humanity had just taught the universe a lesson about the dangers of underestimating a species with nothing left to lose. The real war was about to begin. 6 months after what humans now called Liberation Day, Sarah Chun stood on the deck of the UES Retribution, humanity's first interstellar warship built from captured alien technology. Through the bridge windows, she could see Earth shrinking behind them as they accelerated toward the edge of the solar system. The transformation had been remarkable. Once the alien invasion fleet had been destroyed by Dr. Vasquez's quantum cascade, Humanity had found itself in possession of the most advanced technology in known space. But rather than simply reverse engineer what they'd captured, humans had done what they did best. They'd improved it. "Jump calculations complete," announced Commander Harrison from his position at the navigation station. The former Army colonel had transitioned to commanding humanity's first space fleet with typical human adaptability. "Target system is Kepler 442, approximately 1,200 light-years from Earth." Sarah, now serving as Chief Intelligence Officer for the newly formed Earth Defense Force, studied the tactical displays. Their destination was the homeworld of the hegemony, the galactic empire that had made the mistake of invading Earth. The humans weren't going for revenge. They were going for justice. Report from the surface teams? Sarah asked. Lieutenant Commander Park, formerly Dr. James Park, looked up from his science station. "All evacuation centers are clear. We've successfully relocated approximately 2.8 million human survivors from processing facilities across 47 former hegemony worlds." The rescue missions had been brutal work. After capturing alien star charts and communication codes, human fleets had begun systematically liberating every world where their people were being held. What they'd found had hardened human resolve like nothing else could. The hegemony didn't just harvest knowledge. They treated captured populations as biological resources, extracting everything from organ transplants to genetic material. Humans had discovered laboratories where their people were being dissected while still alive, research facilities where human children were subjected to experimental procedures, and industrial complexes where human brain tissue was being used to create biological computers. Now, the survivors were aboard human ships, heading home to Earth while their rescuers continued toward the hegemony's core worlds. "What's our fleet status?" Harrison asked. Sarah consulted her displays. 47 capital ships, each equipped with hybrid human-alien technology. Quantum disruptor weapons, adaptive shielding, and faster-than-light communication networks. We've also got 300 smaller vessels providing support and reconnaissance. But the numbers didn't tell the real story. The real story was in the innovations. Human engineers had taken alien quantum entanglement technology and weaponized it in ways the hegemony had never imagined. Human physicists had improved alien faster-than-light drives by 37%. Human strategists had developed tactics that turned the hegemony's own coordination systems against them. Most importantly, human psychologists had studied captured alien personnel and identified critical weaknesses in hegemony society. "Intelligence briefing," Sarah announced to the bridge crew. "Based on interrogation of prisoners and analysis of captured data, we've confirmed that the hegemony operates on a rigid caste system with no provision for innovation or adaptation at lower levels." She activated a holographic display showing the structure of alien society. Command decisions flow only downward. Information flows only upward. There's no lateral communication between units, no field initiative, and no contingency planning for scenarios outside established protocols. Harrison nodded grimly. "In other words, they're military bureaucrats who've never faced real opposition." "Exactly. For 3 centuries, they've been fighting primitives with Stone Age technology. They've never faced an enemy that could match their technology while exceeding their tactical flexibility." Lieutenant Commander Torres, the ship's tactical officer, pulled up strategic assessments. "Our advanced scouts report that hegemony core worlds are heavily fortified but using predictable defensive patterns. They're preparing for the kind of frontal assault they're accustomed to facing." Sarah smiled coldly. "Then they're going to be very surprised." The human fleet wasn't planning a traditional military campaign. Instead, they were going to demonstrate the difference between conquest and warfare. "Phase 1 begins in 6 hours, Harrison announced. "All ships prepare for quantum tunnel generation." The human attack was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of approaching enemy star systems directly, human ships used modified alien technology to create quantum tunnels that bypassed normal space entirely. They materialized inside planetary defense perimeters without warning, appearing simultaneously in dozens of locations across multiple worlds, But they didn't start shooting immediately. Instead, human fleets began broadcasting on all frequencies. Sarah's voice carried across the hegemony homeworld as millions of alien civilians looked up at the human ships hanging in their skies. Attention, citizens of the hegemony. We are humans of Earth. Your military forces invaded our world, attempted to harvest our population, and committed genocide against our species. We are here to respond. The broadcast continued in 17 different alien languages. However, we are not here for conquest. We are here for justice. We demand the immediate release of all human prisoners, the dismantling of your harvesting facilities, and the trial of war criminals responsible for genocide against our people. Across the hegemony's core systems, alien populations watched in shock as human ships demonstrated their technological superiority without firing a shot. The humans had somehow appeared inside impregnable defense systems, but instead of attacking, they were making demands. It was a concept the hegemony couldn't comprehend. "Sir," Torres reported, "we're receiving communications from Hegemony High Command. They're attempting to negotiate." Harrison looked surprised. "After 6 months of analyzing their behavior patterns, I didn't expect them to surrender." Sarah studied the incoming transmissions. "They're not surrendering. They're trying to understand our objectives. According to their psychology, conquest should be followed by resource extraction. They can't figure out why we're making demands instead of just taking what we want." The response from hegemony leadership was predictably bureaucratic. "Human forces have violated sovereign hegemony space. Withdraw immediately or face total destruction." Sarah activated the fleet communication system. "All ships, execute Phase 2. Across 47 star systems simultaneously." Human ships began demonstrating exactly what total destruction looked like when humans were doing the destroying, but they weren't targeting population centers or civilian infrastructure. Instead, with surgical precision, they began dismantling the hegemony's military and industrial capacity. Piece by piece, orbital defense platforms simply vanished as human quantum disruptors erased them from existence. Military shipyards found their construction facilities turned into clouds of superheated plasma. Hegemony command centers discovered that their own communication networks had been turned into weapons that fried their equipment from the inside within 12 hours. The mighty hegemony military had been reduced to scattered survivors, hiding in asteroid fields and calling desperately for reinforcements. That would never come, but the humans still weren't finished. "Attention hegemony leadership." Sarah broadcast across their core worlds. "You now have 24 hours to comply with our demands. Release our people, dismantle your harvesting facilities, and surrender your war criminals for trial." She paused, letting the weight of human technological superiority sink in. "Or we will show you the difference between conquest and extermination." In the depths of space, human ships waited with perfect patience for the hegemony's response. Around them, the wreckage of the galaxy's most powerful military force drifted like a monument to the dangers of underestimating Earth's children. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun. 2 years after humanity's ultimatum to the hegemony, Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked through the halls of the newly constructed Galactic Justice Tribunal on the neutral moon of Kepler 442c. The building was a marvel of cooperative engineering, constructed jointly by humans and the 17 species that had agreed to form the new Galactic Federation. Elena had traded her laboratory coat for diplomatic attire, but her sharp scientific mind remained humanity's greatest asset in navigating galactic politics. As she entered the main courtroom, she could see representatives from dozens of species who had come to witness something unprecedented in galactic history: the trial of an entire imperial government for crimes against sentient life. The defendants sat in a specially constructed containment area. Former hegemony leadership, their insectoid forms hunched in defeat, faced charges of genocide, enslavement, and systematic extermination of 47 civilizations over the past 3 centuries. The tribunal recognizes Ambassador Vasquez, of Earth to present the prosecutions. Opening statement, announced Judge Cathara. A crystalline being whose species had suffered under hegemony rule for 2 centuries, Elena stood, her voice carrying the weight of human determination. Honored delegates, we gather today not for revenge, but for justice. The defendants systematically harvested entire civilizations, treating sentient beings as biological resources to be exploited and discarded. She activated a holographic display showing the horror chambers human forces had discovered across hegemony space. The evidence was overwhelming and disturbing. Processing facilities where living beings were dissected for genetic material. Research laboratories where children of various species underwent experimental procedures. Industrial complexes where extracted neural tissue-powered hegemony computers. But this tribunal represents more than justice for past crimes, Elena continued. It represents a choice about the future of our galaxy. Will we allow empires to harvest civilizations like crops, or will we establish the principle that all sentient life has inherent dignity and rights? The Defense Council, a nervous hegemony bureaucrat named Vexthal, rose to respond. The hegemony acted within established galactic law. Technologically primitive species have no legal standing under traditional empire protocols. The courtroom erupted in angry chittering, whistling, and other expressions of outrage from the various species present. Elena waited for quiet to return. That is precisely the problem, she said calmly. Traditional empire protocols assume that technological advancement grants the right to dominate others. Humanity rejects this premise entirely. She turned to address the full assembly. When the hegemony invaded Earth, they expected us to follow the pattern of every other primitive species they had encountered. They expected us to surrender our knowledge in exchange for survival. They expected us to accept our place as resources to be harvested. Elena's voice grew stronger. Instead, we showed them something they had never encountered, a species that fights not just for survival, but for principles. We didn't just defend ourselves, we liberated every world under hegemony control and offered those freed peoples a choice about their own futures. The evidence phase of the trial lasted 3 months. Testimony from survivors painted a picture of systematic cruelty that spanned centuries. But more importantly, it revealed the fundamental weakness that had doomed the hegemony, their inability to imagine that their victims might fight back effectively. Commander Harrison, now Admiral of the Earth Defense Force, testified about the military campaign. The hegemony's greatest weakness wasn't technological, he explained. It was psychological. They had spent so long dominating defenseless civilizations that they couldn't adapt when faced with real opposition. Dr. Park, speaking as Chief Science Officer of the Federation, described how human innovations had turned hegemony technology against itself. They gave us quantum entanglement networks, and we turned them into weapons. They gave us their star charts, and we used them to liberate their victims. They gave us their tactics, and we improved them beyond their recognition. But the most powerful testimony came from the survivors themselves. Jaraki, a reptilian being whose homeworld had been harvested 50 years earlier, spoke in a whisper that carried throughout the silent courtroom. My people thought we were alone in the universe. When the hegemony came, we believed that technological superiority meant moral superiority. We submitted because we thought resistance was futile. The witness gestured toward the human delegation. These beings taught us that technology without wisdom is tyranny. They showed us that moral advancement is more important than technological advancement. They proved that a civilized society protects the weak rather than exploiting them. The trial's conclusion was never in doubt. The evidence was overwhelming, and the hegemony's leaders were found guilty on all charges. But Elena's final statement to the tribunal focused on the future rather than the past. The sentence we impose today will define the character of our new federation, she said. We could choose execution or imprisonment. We could choose to treat the defeated hegemony as they treated others. She paused, looking directly at the defendants. Instead, we choose rehabilitation. The former hegemony leadership will spend the rest of their lives working to rebuild what they destroyed. They will serve the communities they once oppressed. They will learn, firsthand, what it means to be the servants of civilization rather than its masters. The gallery erupted in surprised murmurs. Many species had expected and wanted harsher punishment, Elena continued. This is the difference between justice and revenge. This is the difference between civilization and empire. We build up rather than tear down. We heal rather than harm. We choose to be better than those who wronged us. 6 months later, Elena stood in the observation deck of the Federation's new deep space research station, watching as joint human-alien science teams worked together to explore the mysteries of quantum mechanics. Former hegemony scientists worked alongside their former victims, sharing knowledge instead of hoarding it. Admiral Harrison joined her at the viewport. Any regrets about the sentence? Elena smiled, watching a group of young beings from a dozen different species collaborate on an experiment that would have been impossible under hegemony rule. The galaxy spent 3 centuries living under the rule of those who believe that might makes right. It's time they learned what happens when right makes might. Beyond the station, construction ships were building humanity's latest innovation, a network of quantum communication relays that would allow instantaneous communication across the entire galaxy. But unlike the hegemony's technology, this network would be shared freely among all Federation members. What's our next priority? Harrison asked. Elena pointed toward the galactic rim, where long-range sensors had detected signals from unexplored regions of space. Exploration, discovery, we've shown the galaxy how to fight tyranny. Now we show them how to build something better. She turned to look at her old friend. The hegemony made the mistake of thinking that humans were just another primitive species to be harvested. Instead, they discovered what happens when you awaken a species that believes in justice, fights for freedom, and never ever gives up. Through the viewport, the stars seemed brighter somehow, filled with possibilities that the old galactic order had never allowed. Humanity had entered the cosmic stage not as conquerors, but as liberators. They had transformed a galaxy ruled by fear into a federation built on hope. And in the depths of space, other young civilizations looked up at the stars and dreamed of the day when they, too, might join the beings who had proven that even the mightiest empire could fall when faced with the simple, unstoppable power of people who refused to surrender their dignity. The age of harvesting was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it all started because some aliens made the mistake of underestimating humanity.